at that.
And now
We're so fancy.
Picture.
let's
Feels like classic Hollywood to me.
kick it. For the record, I actually this came from a tutorial by Captain Disillusion.
Oh.
So he made this entire like from scratch After Effects file that you can just go in and tweak. And so I
Nice.
added like our our own house colors and blah
Oh,
blah
nice.
blah.
What's the name of the?
Captain Disillusion. If you don't know him, you have to. He has like all the subscribers, all the followers, all the patrons, and he only releases like one video every 2 months because his videos are obscenely difficult to put together. Because what he does is he debunks fallacious videos like oh my god, you see that penguin knock that penguin into the water or whatever, and he breaks down
Oh my God.
all the effects that were used and all the type of video, and like he just analyzes his video. Anyway,
Oh, from the penguin meme that slaps the other
Yes,
penguin.
yeah.
Yeah. That was. It's obviously fake, but it's cool to understand that.
yeah, like
how
he broke
someone
down
did
how it was just an animated little arm and only this amount of frames, and
That's
yeah,
cool. I like that.
All right, let's do a show.
let's do it.
Should have the.
I love that.
the beeps.
I can hear it in my mind.
Right.
Welcome, everyone, to Good Night and Good Game, your source for geek news for the weeks that were. I'm your host, James, and with me, as always, is my wonderful co-host, Hector,
Hello.
and our fantastic producer, John.
It's me.
John has been putting in a lot of overtime during our holiday break, doing a lot of new graphics, a lot of new fun things. You'll notice that we're back on YouTube after years of hiatus.
Yeah.
We are back. All right. This week on the show, we are going to talk about the Star Wars show, Skeleton Crew, now that it's all wrapped up. You may notice that we've started changing things up around here. We've obviously got the new key art. We're playing with the show format a little bit. So let us know what you think on social media. We're at GNGGcast on Twitter. You could do goodnight.gg on Blue Sky to reach out to me about what you think of the new graphics and the new everything. Before we start, don't forget that you can head over to goodnight.gg, where as a patron of our show, you can suggest topics for us to talk about. Also, as a patron, you get access to our off-week episodes. All right. Here's the first of many changes. It's going to be weird to say this like this, but with all that out of the way, it's time to get into the weekly raid.
The weekly raid.
Hey everyone, it's time for the Weekly Raid, your roundup of this week's geek news. Kicking things off this week, the director of Barbarian, Zach Krieger, has been tapped to be not only the writer, but also the director for the upcoming Resident Evil movie.
I mean, this is great. This
Yeah.
is great news.
Yep, yep.
It's great to have a different captain at the helm of this franchise. I don't know.
It is by the dictionary definition, a franchise.
I am going to miss Mila Jovovich for
Sure,
one, but
sure.
outside of that, I mean, thank fuck. Like we haven't had an actual Resident Evil movie based on a Resident Evil video game, maybe ever, as outside of the animated stuff from like Japan.
Yep.
Like we don't have anything having anything to do with any of the characters we play as, any of the lore from Umbrella or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just hot girls in dystopia, hot girls in Vegas dystopia, hot girls in Japan dystopia.
Paul W.S. Anderson knows what he likes.
And he knows what was making money. I'm not even trashing
His
on
wife
those
makes
movies.
money.
Is there a
Yeah.
reason we're not calling it a franchise?
No, it's
No,
just
no,
that
it is. It is.
That's me throwing shade because it was the Resident Evil franchise and the Resident Evil movies are two so completely separate things that it's weird for them to have the same name at this point.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, and chat saying like hot girls versus monsters always works. It absolutely
Always.
does.
Oh, they literally made Monster Hunter.
Yeah, I
They
mean,
made
like-
they made the Monster Hunter
Like
movie.
we call them the final girls for a reason. We're
Yeah.
super excited about that. But I am excited to hear that Resident Evil is relaunching and
Yeah, I hope they do something cool.
yeah, absolutely. It's a excellent time for Capcom. We don't have a lot of Capcom news this week, but behind the scenes, Capcom is really embracing a lot of their past franchises. It makes sense that we would see another Resident Evil movie, especially that we're getting new Resident Evil games coming out very soon, much in the way that we're seeing Silent Hill movies coming out with the new Silent Hill games. So yeah, give it a little time. Especially, by the way, Barbarian was one of my favorite horror movies of the last couple of years.
It was
So
good.
if that's what we're bringing to the Resident Evil table, I am super excited.
Yeah.
Speaking of things that I'm excited for, next up, A24 said that they are adapting Edgar Allan Poe's Mask of the Red Death and have reached out to Sydney Sweeney to star in it. Now, the last adaptation of The Mask of the Red Death was the wildly popular Netflix show Fall of the House of Usher that was directed by Mike Flanagan.
Yeah.
That was the nightclub episode.
That was really good. It was really, really good.
By good, if you mean disturbing, it was really fucking disturbing.
Yeah.
The Mask of the Red Death is
That's what I was there
is
for.
probably one of the most. As somebody who loves him some old school literature, it's probably the most relevant piece of literature to exist over the last few years, dealing with considering the fact we've been dealing with a pandemic, and so it makes sense that the Mask of Red Death is taking center stage and that we want to revisit that because the story really is about rich people during a pandemic doing bad things.
Yeah.
So-
I mean, reaching out to Sydney Sweeney is very smart because we know that she is a horror fan. I hope she picks it up and that this gets made because I would really love to see it.
Yeah, super excited for that. Now, this is a bit of weird horror news for the week, though. Just a few hours ago, at the time of this recording, Miramax announced they are going to be remaking the 90s cult classic, The Faculty.
Bam, bam, bam.
And if you've never seen The Faculty before, it's about a small town where high school students find out that their teachers have been replaced by aliens. That's a very general overview of the story. It is definitely not one that I thought in the back of my head, oh, they'll totally remake this someday.
Right? It feels like a very 90s movie. Like it should stay there.
Right. We
Well,
have The Faculty.
reminder, blah, 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 factoid of something is older than the 90s, art, us, now, Back to the Future, blah, blah, blah. The 90s were a really fucking long time ago, and I don't want to,
You don't want to think about
I don't
that?
want to scare
Does that
people,
hurt you?
including myself. It hurts me a little. Like, what is it? Marty McFly going back to his parents' time
True.
is less time than us going back to the 90s now.
Well, no, but here's the thing. Like, from the Marty McFly times to the 90s, people still brought frogs to school rather than guns. What I wonder about a movie like The Faculty today
Ah.
is how do the aliens get through the bulletproof doors?
Oh, God.
You know what I mean?
That's
like
so
it's
dark.
it's just so high school is a
That's
very
so
different
dark.
place than it used to be.
Yikes.
It's not Varsity Blues anymore. It's how do we open up the chamber wall that protects all
Varsity
the
Smith
students?
and Wesson.
What you're
Yeah.
telling us, Hector, is that
They might
right
as well,
now-
those aliens might as well try to break into a police station.
right now high school is ripe for all the action movies of the 80s and 90s.
Oh,
Die
see,
Hard, but
Right
in a high
for it,
school.
yeah.
No, we had these in the 90s. It was about a bunch of students beating the shit out of or straight up killing students.
Also-
Dangerous Mind and all of the movies
Also,
that
by the way,
spawned.
if you're looking for Die Hard in a School, one of my favorite movies of all time
The Substitute.
is a little 80s classic that nobody knows called Toy Soldiers.
Yeah,
Oh,
with Sean
fantastic.
Penn, right? Or not Sean Penn,
Abs-
Austin.
Yeah,
Aston.
Sean Astin's in it. And yeah, it is like Brat Pack era, absolutely fantastic movie that not enough people watched. I rated up there with some of my favorite low-key 80s films like St. Elmo's Fire that just more people need to watch and appreciate. Okay, speaking of 80s things, by the way, in Broadway news, it was announced this week. By the way, we do Broadway news now, just so in
Hell
case
yeah.
you know. Broadway news. It was announced this week that in the spring 2026 lineup on Broadway, the film The Lost Boys is getting a stage adaptation called The Lost Boys: A New Musical.
How in the fuck did we get a Spider-Man musical before The Lost Boys?
Good question.
What the fuck is wrong with Broadway? like how did we miss The Lost Boys and go straight to Spider-Man?
Remind me, who did like the main title theme song for the Lost Boys movie?
So
band
there's
was that?
it was lots of artists. Tom Capella was one of the.
Well,
main
it's the
people
song
who
I'm
worked
thinking
on it.
about. The little girl sister.
So there's Cry Little Sister.
Yes.
Is one of the big numbers from it. And I Still Believe, which I've been listening to on repeat all this last week while we play Marvel Rivals. And yeah, I Still Believe. Those are the two key songs in The Lost Boys. But the entire soundtrack is fantastic.
But who did that song, Cry Little Sister?
Oh, you're going to make me lose my goth
Sorry,
cred by not
sorry.
knowing it off the top of my head.
Put you on blast.
I know. But yeah, like The Lost Boys is a musical. Me and my little brother do not get agree
Gerard
on a whole lot.
McMahon?
I don't know. My little brother and I, we agree on very few things, but he did watches a lot of horror recommendations that I give to him. And actually, one of my little brother's favorite movies of all time is The Lost Boys. I immediately messaged him, and I was like, wouldn't it be funny if we went to New York and went to go see The Lost Boys on Broadway? And his immediate response was, "So you're saying we are going to go to New York and going to go watch The Lost Boys on Broadway?"
Fucking A.
Yeah. Finally, in movie news today, and this is going to be a deeply contentious topic to talk about. The dark 1999 Takashi Miike film Audition will be getting remade by Focus Features. Now, if you've never seen Audition, it's a Japanese film where a director falsely auditions women for a film that is never going to be made as a way for him to find himself a new girlfriend. Now, he succeeds in this task, and shortly after he succeeds, things start to go horribly wrong for him, and I'm not going to spoil it. I am going to warn you, though, if you have never seen Audition, it is probably one of the most fucked up films to ever exist because Takashi Miike makes those.
Yeah.
To put this in
If you've never
perspective,
seen a Miike movie in general,
yeah, like any of the stuff Miike does in general. Like, to give you some perspective, one of my favorite horror series of all time is Showtime's Masters of Horror. And literally it is a mini series. It's a horror anthology series where the best of the best of the best horror directors got to write one episode per season. And the only episode that was never allowed to be shown on Showtime, the one episode that Showtime went, nope, that's too much, even for us, was the Takashi Miike episode. Put that in perspective. Let's talk about this, Hector.
yeah. So I hate when this shit happens. I feel like we had stopped. Like we got Ju-on, and then we got The Grudge, and we got
Old Boy.
You know, The Ring. Old Boy was. Don't even get me fucking started on Old Boy. That was. So someone allowed Spike Lee to do something they shouldn't have given him money for. But like. We used to like a movie was a hit in Japan, and then it was the American remake was like 2 years down the line at the most, you know, and this kept happening, and then it stopped. Kind of, we just switched to different genres, but the fact that this movie from so long ago is only now getting a translation is just really strange to me. I feel like this movie is available enough that we can just go watch it if that's what anyone is looking for.
But also, it
I
feels
can't
more
imagine-
appropriate.
I can't imagine how this movie would improve on the original in any way, is I guess what I'm saying.
Let me throw this one out there because we have talked about remakes and sequels a lot over the last few months. And one of the topics that always comes up is, for us, is the Boondock Saints. And we've said, like, look, man, we're past those movies. It doesn't work the way it used to. But your argument has always been like, you know, if they did a 3 and they took out some cops, like, that would be very relevant.
Oh, yeah. We find a new way to reorient the story.
Yeah. When I hear somebody wants to remake Audition, the first thing that pops into my head is, we make a bigger deal of the thing that's kind of glossed over at the beginning of the movie, which is the abuse of Hollywood professionals to people. There is an opportunity here to take a very dark, really fucked up thing that exists in our really real world and explore it a little bit more, and it might make the movie a little bit darker. That being said, I don't really know if this is a movie that needs to be remade.
Well, that's the thing. Like, you got, like, of course we could do it's Audition, but instead of taking out a guy who is rude to a bunch of women and doing what they do to him in that movie, we're going to do it to a Harvey Weinstein analog for me to name a random name for no reason.
Right.
I mean, I'm in
You really
that.
just pulled that name out of,
Yeah,
out of the air.
I,
Like,
just, I thought of a
it's-
random name.
Yeah.
I've never even heard that name before. Like if I would watch that movie and completely root for the person doing the bad stuff in the movie, which in the Japanese version it's kind of like, well, yeah, that was shitty, but aren't you overreacting?
Yeah, that is
and
kind
in
of
this
what
one it would
happened.
be like more of a no, and in a almost like a, I spit on your grave sort of thing.
Yeah.
So
I would almost, if I was working on this movie, I would never call it a remake. I would call it an adaptation
yeah.
and really focus in on some modern social issues that need to be discussed. I think that it's ripe to have those conversations. We are seeing more and more horror movies that are indirectly, for some weird reason, referencing Harvey Weinstein. I can't imagine why.
Yeah.
But a lot of those have been coming out over the last few years.
Yeah.
All right, let's bounce out of the world of movies and let's over to the world of video games. So first up this week, Nintendo has announced the Switch 2. And that's kind of about it.
Yeah,
They
it
announced
is a bigger, better Switch. It's
a
a little bit bigger. It's
little bit
a lot
bigger.
better according to the promotions.
Yeah. There's a. They seem to hint that you could use one of the Joy-Con controllers as a mouse.
Right. Yeah. They hint that you can use it as a mouse. It looks
Yep.
like they pop in and out magnetically.
Mm-hmm.
They made a reference to like better joysticks because of all the stick drift and Joy-Cons.
Yeah.
That was it. They showed a few seconds of a new Mario Kart game that looked so much like Mario Kart that someone had to point out to me that was a new game and not the old one.
Yep.
And then they're like, "Hey, we'll see you guys later this year, not with the console release, but with more information."
Yep.
So it's like, okay.
It was fine.
Yeah.
And I'm putting a pin in here for our audience because I do want to do a boss room very soon about the handheld console wars that
Yeah.
nobody's talking about that are currently going on. It's a bigger thing than we're making it out to be. Like we have not only the Steam Deck, but a lot of other competitors. And when we do have that talk, and I want all of our listeners to think about this before the episode. Do you think Nintendo can survive in a world where everybody has a handheld and most of them are more powerful than the things that Nintendo is creating? I don't need your answer now, class. Just think on it for a couple weeks until we get around to the topic. But it was a general announcement from Nintendo saying, hey, the
Yeah.
worst kept secret in video games is true. It's a thing.
Yep, we're doing exactly what you all expected us to because it is financially reasonable for us to do so.
Right.
Yeah, we're not reinventing the wheel this time because we have a good one.
But Hector, let me tell you about something that nobody expected that happened this week.
Uh-oh.
And that is Good Old Games, one of the greatest game delivery services that are out there.
Oh,
If
yeah.
you do not have an account, please sign up. Good Old Games re-released the fan favorite survival horror game, Dino Crisis.
Fuck
Not
yeah.
only the first one, but the second one.
The what?
These games are always DRM free. They are $10 a piece, or they are bundled together for like 17 for cheaper.
Yep.
This is a Capcom classic. This has laid dormant for some time. And you think that I'm making fun of it. No. A lot of people who love survival horror, who love Resident Evil, who love Silent Hill, they love Dino Crisis, which is basically like dinosaurs on a space station.
Yeah,
with
Dinosaur
survival.
Resident Evil is pretty much how it's built.
And for decades, people have been wondering, will these games ever get remade, or has Capcom just decided we don't want to acknowledge their existence? And I think for a long time, we could have agreed like, oh, well, maybe Capcom just doesn't want to remake those games. Until recently, we saw they're remaking Onimusha.
Right. When Onimusha came back, it's like, oh, fuck, everything is on the table.
Mm-hmm.
It's all on the table. It's not just Resident Evil. It's not just, it's all, like, why wouldn't they?
Right.
You know, it's all coming.
It is. And this is a good year for Capcom already. And if Capcom decides to sign off on doing a Dino Crisis remake, that's huge. Like
Yeah.
we
Like,
already know
yeah.
they'll make millions out of it.
It's very early in the year, but imagine if they drop like Monster Hunter on us at the end of February, and then before the end of the year, we have like a Dino Crisis remake.
Even just a trailer.
Yeah,
Like,
frankly.
Whew. Oh yeah, but yeah, good old game. It was a great month for good old games because not only did they release Dino Crisis 1 and 2, playable on your PC, but they have teamed up with the European Federation of Game Archives, Museums and Preservation. That is a very long title.
Long.
But what they're doing is they're trying to continue their preservation efforts of games as cultural heritage. Now, Good Old Games is the very first Polish organization to join the ranks of the EFGAMP. It's the abridged version of
God,
that.
that's harder to say than the name.
I know, it really is. Other famous groups is there are museums in France, Germany, and Rome who are all a part of this game archive preservation effort. So it seems like more and more European countries are not only trying to spearhead game preservation, but make sure that it's a cultural touchstone in the way that classical art is. So it's entirely possible over the next decade or so, you will be seeing in more and more museums, at least in Europe, very large sections of video game history that's there. Not to put too fine a point on it, but a couple of years back, I went to Seattle and I went to the Pop Culture Museum there, and they actually do have a giant video game section that is about the history of video games.
Oh, that's so cool.
And so these video game preservation societies that are popping up more and more frequently, these are the things that we've been wanting, and they're going to take a while to get where they need to be. I want to emphasize that because there is a lot of red tape. So, to provide another example in the news this week, the Video Game History Foundation, which recently launched their website, they call themselves, quote, a digital archive of video game research. Now, they just entered what they consider early access. And the Video Game History Foundation goal is to provide access to information on the history of video games to anybody who wants to study, and will include things like out-of-print game publications, magazines, press kits, and promotional material. So on their website, you can find things like directories and maps for the first 12 years of E3, things that people would normally just throw away. Now, that being said, retail games are not available through the VGHF. There's a lot of copyright restrictions. So what they're trying to do is get what they can and are legally allowed to present to the public, and that's mostly things like game instruction manuals, game advertisements, but also things like paperwork that was just given out at a booth at an E3 in like 1992.
Ah, that's cool.
Right?
Yeah, I love it.
All right. So we've had a lot of fun today, haven't we? It's been exciting talking about the news. Been a lot of good news. Everybody's in good spirits around here, I can see.
Yeah.
It's time to talk about the final topic in the news this week. So, I want to get into some metrics. I know. Everybody immediately got so excited when I said the word metrics.
Oh,
I know.
man. Yeah, I put on my running shoes.
I know.
That's what I did.
So excited about it. So, finally this week, let's get into some metrics. Now, all of these come to us courtesy of GameDeveloper.com, which is a fantastic online resource that I use regularly when I'm working on this show. They fact check all of their sources, and there's a reason that we use them the way that we do. That being said, GameDeveloper.com puts out a survey at the beginning of every year, courtesy of the Game Developers Conference, which will be taking place in March, typically is when it happens. And all it does is it's the state of the video game industry. They just send it out to people, and game developers can reply to it or not reply to it. We have a lot of things to talk about here. So, that being said, I cannot go over every question that is in this survey. I do encourage you, if this is something that fascinates you, go over to GameDeveloper.com where the full article is, and I'll also link to this article in the show notes so that you can get the breakdown of everything that is discussed on the survey. All right. Let's get into the survey. I'm going to do this piece by piece, Hector, so that we can just kind of react and talk about it instead of doing it all at once.
Yeah.
So, over 3,000 developers were surveyed this year. And of those 3,000, 11% of those developers said that they were laid off in the last year. And that the most common reason that was given was, quote unquote, restructuring.
Yeah, I mean, that's so we most recently and just to wiggle a little bit more news in there, we most recently saw this with BioWare. BioWare recently released their numbers on how the Dragon Age The Vile Guard did sales-wise. And basically the numbers were about 50% of what they expected to sell in units. And alongside this news, there was a very carefully worded blog post from their CEO talking about how they were going to be moving around some staff, basically. He's trying to soften everyone up for layoffs. And this is what's happened, and we saw example after example, a lot in 2023, and then just a deluge last year of companies that the game didn't sell, so incredibly well that they created a new paradigm. Here come the layoffs. A game that sold, nearly as what it expected to, but not quite, layoffs. Games that do well, layoffs. The less said about Concord, the better. But an entire studio closed because of it. And the news we keep hearing throughout the last 2 years in the games industry is, hey, this shitty game we pumped out by some of your favorite, developers ever in one of your favorite franchises, well, we fired everyone who makes the games. But please rest assured that all the people in charge of making all the decisions that led to this crappy game all got bonuses. That's what we've been hearing.
And can I just say, the language of all these firings deeply offends me, not as somebody who has been mistreated by people in power, but as a student of philosophy, hearing somebody say that it's part of restructuring, anybody getting fired is restructuring.
John, let's not fucking wax philosophical about this. You're saying this is somebody who the three of us all worked together and last year all got laid off because of quote unquote restructuring.
Oh, yeah. So I'm just saying, I would appreciate, as somebody who has been restructured, I'd appreciate some honesty. I'd appreciate some leveling. Like you didn't let me go. I wasn't trying to leave. Yeah. I wasn't trying to escape. Nobody let me free, and restructuring is a non-answer. No matter who gets fired, if a random bartender walks off the job, you got to do a little restructuring.
Somebody restructure the presidency while we're at it.
Oh, God. If only. Oh, man, getting us started.
You're just going to make us cry.
I know. All right, next up on the list of things to talk about, 30% of developers believe that generative AI is having a negative impact on the games industry, which is actually up 12% from last year.
Yeah, generative AI is having a negative effect on literally everything.
What?
Everything. Like every company that is even tech adjacent, even a whole bunch of that are thinking, I might never have to actually compose an email again. I might never actually have to write a report again. And if you can't do that, you shouldn't have your job, first of all. But second of all, someone promised a thinking machine and they gave us, the cartoon of a kid with a propeller on his hat. Where he just twirls it and gives you all the wrong answers, because that's what AI is and that's what it has done. Mm-hmm. It negatively affected our previous position where we worked at together for no other reason than they decided to have us waste time on implementing it into the company that had no business using it and no need for it. They just thought it would save them money, so they bought it. We've seen slop after slop, and then the embarrassment of DeepSeek coming in, from being trained for $5 million. When all the AI companies went to Trump, weeks before his inauguration and asked for $500 million.
It's true.
I think this is AI.
Yeah. AI is literally ruining everything because it's not what it says on the tin.
Also,
it's nothing at all.
Also, as we, I would like to believe that we're an educational show. One of the things that's really baffling to me, and it's something that we deal with a lot of times because we all work in the tech industry, is there's a lot of mislabeling of things. So, for instance, as a silly example, back in the day when I first moved to Austin and met Hector and all these wonderful things, we worked for HP Cloud.
Yeah, we did.
And the public's perception of what cloud technology was versus those of us who worked in the industry were two vastly different things.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody in the public, and this is not the public's fault, this is the way that it was advertised to you, is that cloud was this new, amazing, strange technology that nobody could really comprehend.
Yeah,
because
everyone needs
it was-
cloud.
everybody's got to have cloud. And all of us who work in the tech industry is like, so it's just a virtual server. We just gave it a fancy name.
It's a techie with a hard drive.
Yep.
And so when we talk about this generative AI, the problem is the business model, the marketing part of this is the word AI. There is nothing that is artificially intelligent about these bots
Yeah,
that
no.
are scraping information.
Literally just an algorithm that is also stealing from you.
Right. And so keep that in mind because a lot of people over the next few years are going to be throwing around the terms AI and they're not going to be using it in the proper context because it's not AI. It is just a bot that scrapes other artists' art
Yeah.
and then regurgitates it in a very bad way.
Right. It's literally just a talking box, and the box has nothing to say because it doesn't feel or think anything. This is, crypto was a Ponzi scheme, always has been, always will be. NFTs were nonsense trinkets designed to make you buy crypto because too many rich people were left holding the bag. None of these inventions were actually anything. And they disrupted entire companies. Tesla reported its earnings from the last quarter, and like a fourth of it was unrealized gains on Bitcoin. None of that shit is real.
And what's sad is all of this technology, it could have been useful from like a journalistic or archiving standpoint. We could have been able to identify like, oh, the NFT of this photo, therefore we know this photo was actually taken on this date and it's real. But there's no money in that. There's
Right.
no like you can't sell that to somebody and inflate the price. It
Yep.
would just be for archiving and data and information. And we're waving goodbye to all of that.
Yeah, so just keep that in the back of your mind as you hear the term AI being thrown around a lot, because when those of us who have worked in tech, when we originally understood the concept of AI, we're talking like obviously there's been a lot of sci-fi movies that have been made about AI and what it can do, literally the movie AI,
Yeah.
but to give you a real life example, to bring up video game history, my favorite thing to do. When the original Metal Gear Solid was created on the Sony PlayStation, Hideo Kojima's crew wrote an AI that was a little bit smarter than it needed to be, or than it should have been. The AI was taught, hey, your goal as a soldier in this Alaskan hellscape is to find this soldier and kill him. The problem is they made the actual AI and actual artificial intelligence way too smart. And the game would break its code and go kill the player.
Right.
Because it knows that's my job is the characters
the player.
go find Snake and kill him. And so it was so difficult that they had to like basically make the AI dumber so that it became the generic soldiers that we see. That is what AI is to a lot of people that work within the games industry and in the tech industry. Not I just read a bunch of Neil Gaiman's work and now I know how to be a sexual predator. Like that's what AI is currently, that to make it weirdly relevant to modern times. So just be very skeptical of AI, and apparently all these, and obviously all these game developers are like they're seeing the writing on the walls,
Right.
and going, yeah, we don't want this.
And more than it's just bad, I hate to go to all conspiracy theory with you, but I had an argument with my Google device a few days ago where, I was asking for something that it wasn't delivering, and I'm like, fuck off, or, something rude like that. And the Google came back at me like, hey, I may not be a person, but I have feelings. And I'm like, no,
No, you do not.
fucking way.
Yeah.
And here's the next step in my mind. The next step is you don't own anything already, but the next step is our products have rights and are required to be treated in a specific way that will cost you money, time, and effort. You will now treat our products the way we demand you treat our products.
Yeah, corporations are people 2.0.
Right.
Here we are.
All right, moving on from AI, let's talk about the next bit in the survey, which is 33% of developers surveyed for this are currently working on live service games. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the term, live service games are always online games such as Fortnite, Overwatch 2, Destiny 2, Marvel Rivals, etc. 33% of developers are working on live service games currently. That's a big fucking number.
That's
And I bet you, like, and that's only out of like what 3,000 to 4,000. I bet you if like you actually got the entire industry, you'd be closer to like I would say 45% of them are working on live service games.
Back in my day, James, I'm old enough to remember the launch, the shortly after the launch, the climactic success of World of Warcraft, of the game coming out and being so ridiculously popular. They had millions of subscriptions coming in. And suddenly we'd be hit with headlines like, there are 11 MMORPGs currently in development by, 9 different studios. So some of them are fucking making more than one. We don't have fucking space for all of that. This is the old, not to quote a piece of shit, but this is the old argument Louis C.K. had with his 5-year-old, where the questions kept getting more existential. Like, they just keep asking why, and it's like, well, no, you can't have that. Well, why? Because you can't have everything or else there's a bunch of spiders and top hats in a room that we don't have room for all that shit. We don't have room for 11 MMORPGs in the gaming space, and we certainly do not have room for 15 live service games, Sony, on their own over the last 2 years, who have recently canceled them all. Oh, if 33% of developers... my heart just broke. If 33% of developers are working on live service games, then in my head, 33% of all developers will lose their jobs within the next 3 years, and most of them, their projects won't even be a trailer or see the light of day. That is fucking horrible. There isn't enough room for all these live service games. You are not going to be Destiny. You're not going to be Fortnite. Stop it. Make a good video game. I have spent, and we'll get to it later, the last couple of days playing an excellent fucking video game. And it's just a single-player RPG, the type of thing that Dragon Age Vileguard should have been. And it's wonderful. And I am completely lost in it in a way that I have not been lost in a game forever. And none of the people making a live service game are going to give me that experience. They're just not.
All right, we only have a couple more metrics to look over here. 56% of developers surveyed said that they have put their own money into funding the creation of their games currently.
That's disturbing. Unless it's an indie studio, in which case that would make perfect sense.
I assume that most of them are probably indie studios.
I mean, if that's the case, then, hopefully they're... who put his own money into making a game? The one guy who made Balatro. True. Tony Stark made that in a cave with Excel or something. Whoever made that game, they're fucking...
Local Thunk is his name.
Yeah, they're fucking flying high. That guy's raking in the trillions, But everyone else, it's hard to hear that, but at the same time, the more prevalent that becomes, and with the massive plunging of AAA games these days, hopefully with enough startup entrepreneurial spirit, we'll get actual good games over the next several years while the industry corrects itself.
Now, I want to touch on that point just really briefly because you kind of went where my mind went on this. During the Video Game Awards in December, Larian Studios came up before they presented the award for Game of the Year. And one of the things they said during their big speech, which is somehow weirdly controversial to a very small group of incels,
Yeah.
and that is that the games that you will see come out that win Game of the Year will be games that are created by passionate studios that are not worried about the funding of outside publishers.
Right.
That
Companies that aren't publicly traded, that aren't having conversations about revenue and market share.
Right.
It'll be made by, artists who want to make something great for, an audience.
And hearing this 50%, 56% of developers saying that they put their own money into funding the creations of their games tells me that we are seeing the beginning of a lot more independent game studios launching in the wake of all the things that we have been talking about previously, right? In the face of these layoffs, in the face of AI, in the face of all of this, a lot of game developers are leaving and saying, you know what, I'm going to do it on my own.
Yep.
And I think that we're going to see some amazing games over the next 6 years once those studios get firmly established. Okay.
Agreed.
This is one of the most interesting metrics to me. And we could talk about it on several levels. Hector, I think you're going to have a lot to say about it. So finally, 15% of game developers surveyed said that their companies have been impacted by natural disasters due to climate change.
Yeah. I mean, how many studios are there in LA? Like, probably more than a handful, baker's dozen, more than 20, more than 100 video game studios, probably in the greater LA area.
We have at least 300 here in Austin.
LA has been on fire. And I don't just mean the recent fires that are still a little bit going. I'm talking about the state of California being a little bit on fire all throughout the year at this point. And not to mention the impact of an incredible studio like the one that recently made Stalker 2, impacted by war. This is just climate change. And for whatever reason, this idea is controversial. It's not controversial to your insurance company. It's not controversial to anyone doing any long-term planning for infrastructure. It's only controversial to say it out loud because it inconveniences people with money. But yes, your job, all of you, everyone who can hear this and everyone who can't, your job is likely to be impacted by climate change within the next 3 to 5 years. It's just where we ended up because we didn't do anything about it.
John, you had something to add to the conversation here?
No, I was just going to say it's been several years that it's happening. Like it's
You are an
never
LA
ending. Like,
boy, so you've seen the worst of it.
My one of my former producers, Dr. Randy Olson, biologist turned filmmaker, he his Malibu home 3 or 4 years ago, it burned down to the ground. He lost everything. I fortunately backed up all of his data, and I literally have some of his like movies still on like DV tape.
Nice.
But this year again, he had to just evacuate, and this time it was no big deal to him. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm at a hotel for a few days. You know, we'll see if the apartment burns or not."
Yeah.
Yeah. That's I mean, that's just where we live because we live on Earth.
That is a survey of the games industry as it currently stands. I will keep every year that we are doing this show going back to this survey as long as they keep putting it on. Again, that's gamedeveloper.com in conjunction with the Game Developers Conference, speaking to game developers directly about the state of the industry. This is not a survey that is full of lies and bullshit and whatever marketing PR shit. This is coming from the horse's mouth. And turns out everybody's really upset at the state of the industry, which is sad because we do this show every week and we talk about video games specifically because it's a medium that we appreciate and we enjoy and that we love. And our heart goes out to all of the developers that are suffering through what's going on right now because we want you to keep making the amazing art that you do so we can keep consuming it. Mm-hmm. And it sucks to hear these things.
Yeah, I hope the data continues being collected. I hope this doesn't go the way of like gun violence data.
Yeah. We have to keep keeping track. I mean, one of the Christ. I mean, we literally just left the WHO so that we wouldn't have to report numbers.
Right.
Like here we are. But hopefully, yeah, we just keep on keeping on, keep on doing your work, collect that data. We need to know these things. because it helps us make decisions.
Absolutely. All right. I know that was a big sad. We had a big sad moment about it. But that's everything that we have for the news this week. But stick with us because we're going to be getting into our main topic in the boss room.
Boss Room.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. It is time for the boss room, sometimes related to the news, sometimes not. This is the part of the show where we can dive even deeper into our opinions on things like this week's topic. We're going to talk about Star Wars Skeleton Crew. Now, if you had a big sad during that last segment, let me tell you, the sad is over.
Yeah.
It's time to have fun. This is a fun-only zone. If you're not here to have fun with Star Wars, this is not the show for you.
The good times are rolling.
The good times are rolling. All right, so quick disclaimer here. Star Wars Skeleton Crew is a show that was made with a younger audience in mind about a group of kids who discover a lost pirate ship and accidentally set sail to the stars, while back home their parents struggle to find answers as to where they could have possibly gone. Its influences can be felt through things like all of Spielberg's filmography.
Oh, yeah.
And there are only 7 episodes.
Yeah, a bunch of pirate stuff, Pirates of the Caribbean, Cutthroat Island, like the Muppets pirate movie, with, all of that stuff.
With Tim Curry, yeah,
With Tim
absolutely.
Curry, yeah. You get a little bit of hook. There's so much good pirate shit going on in the Star Wars story that everyone's like,
I'm going to tell you
wait,
right now.
were they always pirates?
If you came here to hear us shit all over some Star Wars things, you're on the wrong show, bud.
Yeah, this
because we
isn't where we do
fucking
that.
loved Skeleton Crew.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into it. There will be some spoilers. We don't know where or how. I do not have the conversation mapped out for this. We both loved this show so much. I just want us to talk about it. Hector, tell me about Star Wars Skeleton Crew.
I'm going to start this in kind of a roundabout way. We're going to get a tiny anecdote here. But in the movie Pineapple Express,
That's a weird place
What?
to start
Danny
this.
McBride and Seth Rogen have a short conversation about doing the right thing and about coming back, being reincarnated as something good because you were a good person. And he says, but if you're good, if we go out there and we do the right thing, you might come back as Jude Law. Now, Jude Law
Actually relevant to this discussion, believe it or not.
is one of the most beautiful human beings you'll ever see. Just looking at him takes your breath away. Also a fantastic fucking actor. And shows up to this role in the way that, Michael Caine showed up to do the Muppets Christmas Carol. He's just acting his motherfucking ass off with a bunch of children and puppets, doing the absolute best, snakiest, sneakiest motherfucking pirate who you can't trust a word that they say, always talking his way out of trouble while he's getting ready to stab you in the back. Jude Law, so much better than coming back as an anal bead.
But I gotta say,
You question throughout the entire show whether or not he's even a fucking Jedi.
Right, whether he's a Jedi, how he got his powers, which is just like not important, not germane to the story. This is just your pirate character, and it's more fun that he can use the Force.
but I gotta say,
little.
for all the non-Jude Law lovers in the world, I get it in the sense that like Chris Rock literally did an opening monologue at the Oscars about who's Jude Law. You ever seen a Jude Law movie? Any of you a
Yes.
fan of a Jude Law film? And he is like an unsung underdog. Like he never quite hit a big movie kind of thing. And he exists in this very strange place where he is just as good as every A-list actor in the world. And he could easily lead any film you give him. But who's Jude Law? So I get it if you're confused or trying to figure out, wait, haven't I seen him in a bit part? And
You've
wasn't
seen him
he?
in everything.
In everything. He's
Yeah.
also everything.
Shit. But yeah, that's just to talk about one character. There is a beautiful cast of a bunch of very well cast children actors, and there's an amazing animatronic puppet that's one of their friends. One of the kids is an android, which I have so many questions. But The rest of it is just, regular Star Wars swashbuckling, setting out to the stars adventure. And my God, is it cool.
I didn't know what I was going to get into with Skeleton Crew. We got a trailer for it a few weeks before the show came out, and you could feel the Spielberg influence. It's one of those ones that, like, people who maybe don't watch as much film looked at it and goes, man, that trailer really reminds me of Stranger Things. To put modern pop culture reference. Like, yeah, right. So, yes, Spielberg, that's where all that came from. That's what we're doing. We're doing a Spielberg.
Yeah. That's what Stranger Things was doing, by the way. They were copying the thing that you're seeing now.
Right. And first off, I know that it's so rare to say this when it comes to film or TV shows, but like, my God, the children actors in this show, they're all great. I care about all of them. I want them all to be safe and to get home safe. You can relate to the children characters. Like, if you were not a kid that wished to be a pirate or a Jedi pirate, I don't know, man. Maybe you had a bad childhood. I don't know what to tell you.
No, everyone can see themselves. And like, every adult watching this show is like, oh, I'm the little type A girl. Yeah, I know what to do next. Everyone get the fuck out of my way. And I'm sitting here like, I'm the kid that wants to be a Jedi and do the right thing, but is wildly naive and wants to touch everything. And some people are the scared kid. And no one's the android. I have so many questions about the child android. What the fuck?
Now, is this an android? Forgive me, I have not actually
She has
seen
modifications.
This. Okay, so it is a.
She's human.
No, she's not.
So it's not like
that's a robot.
It's not
He
an
repaired her
R2-D2?
brain.
Oh, that's right. He did repair her brain.
He kept her from shutting down.
That's right.
That's not a cyborg. That's a droid.
Okay, but it's a droid that looks
Looks
like
like a human.
Looks like a
okay.
child
Okay.
wearing a visor.
It looking like a child. Okay.
Yeah. Most droids are, because they can think and act of their own will, slaves. This one is a couple's child. What's happening? That being said, we're talking about a planet that is like old Star Wars, like practically High Republic Star Wars. It turns out to be a mint. That's why it's so hidden. That's why like people want to go back to it, and they don't know how to get back to their own
This
planet
planet-
because it's not on the charts.
Yeah, this planet does not exist
Right,
to the
because
galaxy.
that's where they make the currency. And like there's so much cool story going on because the kids leave for adventure without knowing they literally grew up on the treasure planet.
Yep.
It's so fucking cool. And you should definitely watch this show because the adventures and hijinks are amazing. But I have so many questions about the droid.
You know what's funny? Right before we were recording this, Hector and I were talking about like the dystopian version of this kind of sort of plot, AI, the Haley Joel Osment character who is
It's made as a robot to replace a dead child.
yeah, and it has Jude Law.
It does
My
have Jude
favorite
Law.
role ever
And
of Jude Law.
it also
He
has
plays the
Chris
male
Rock.
hooker, the male robot hooker.
Yeah.
It's so hard to like, if you haven't seen Skeleton Crew and you've been listening this far, I don't know what to tell you other than please go watch it.
Go watch it.
I gotta-
I promise not to spoil any more of it. I haven't told you
I will
the
say
ending or anything.
I am sold, especially because there are so many moments in Star Wars, especially like the prequels or whatever, where I was like, ugh, grow up. But with this, I'm like, oh no, it's little kids.
I gotta
It's
tell you, right
yeah.
now, and I am a Acolyte apologist.
Oh, Acolyte was great.
Fucking fight me on that one.
Yeah.
But Acolyte aside, two of the greatest pieces of Star Wars media that we have gotten in the last 5 years are a Star Wars story made just for adults in Andor, and then Skeleton Crew, which is for the kids
Yep.
and those of us who are kids at heart. And I'm sorry, but if you watched Skeleton Crew, and I try not to have these kind of opinions, but this I'm taking a firm stance on this one. If you watch Skeleton Crew and you were like, well, that's not fucking Star Wars, I'm so over it. How dare they have fun as kids?
Right.
Get the fuck out.
Yeah.
Like, Star Wars is about space wizards.
The first three
Like-
movies were stories for children about space wizards.
Right.
Like straight up.
Yeah, Lucas didn't get into the political shit until
Yeah.
like episode 1.
Yeah, like there were politics going on for sure, but like nobody in the first three Star Wars movies said fascism.
Yeah, no,
we never had that
The original
conversation.
trilogy was space wizards versus Nazis. Like,
Yep.
that's what it was, as simple as it gets.
Yeah, and it's good times. And if you want to, write an essay about how George Lucas was talking about Vietnam, then yeah, Prue will probably.
He did.
I'm in.
He admits it.
Yeah, I'd love to read all about it. But like the movies are what they are, and they were for kids, especially Return of the Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
And this feels like a less of a compromise than Return of the Jedi was, because they didn't just stuff it full of teddy bears and still make it, the evil empire versus the rebellion. They made a kid's story where kids are in it and they're having fun and they're sometimes they're in a little danger, but they learn lessons. It's good shit. It's excellent TV, and it's some of the best Star Wars we've ever gotten.
There was a point when I was watching Skeleton Crew where I was sitting on my couch with my cats, probably high as shit, and I thought to myself, if this had come out when I was a kid, me and all of my friends on the playground the next day would be playing these characters on the playground.
Mm-hmm. Some kid would be crying that he gets to be the elephant kid. You
Right.
know.
Yeah, I would be wanting to be, I'd see it now. I would be wanting to be like either Jude Law's character or the angry pirate robot.
Angry Pirate Robot was the best.
Yeah.
He even had, instead of an eye patch, one of his droid eyes is missing, and there's a little rat that lives in there. It's fucking
The rat's a whole character.
adorable. The rat is a whole character. You follow that rat's deep story throughout the series.
Star Wars is a series that, because we are all nerds and we all have to unfortunately listen to the angry nerds online who get really butthurt about dumb shit in Star Wars. Please stop. That they nitpick, right? Because we as nerds, we do nitpick, right?
Oh, yeah.
We go, oh man, it's so weird that suddenly Rey has this force power. They probably gave it to her because she's a girl. Please never say that. That's so gross. Please, God, never say that.
Yeah. Plot armor is gender blind.
God, please. Star Wars Skeleton Crew does not give a fuck what you think. Star Wars Skeleton Crew says this is a coming-of-age story about 4 kids who get to step outside their little suburban neighborhood, which also very disturbing that there's suburbia in Star Wars now that we've seen it, because it's kind of a fascism when you see it.
Oh yeah, they're completely controlled by the little droids who instruct their lives. And again, I said I wouldn't spoil any more of it for you. So it's not great to live at the Mint.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. It's kind of gross and weird.
And boring.
But I watch this and I go, I look at this and I'm like, I don't care if they change the rules of how the Force works or how the universe works or any of this. Because all I care about since episode 2 was, I hope these kids get home safe and I hope no one dies.
Yeah.
And you actually go several episodes of the show purely from the kids' perspectives. Eventually it does turn to the parents' perspectives. And that's kind of that moment where those of us who are adults watching the show, and especially I know a lot of friends of ours have families that were watching the shows going, oh God, I would be so panicked if my child suddenly disappeared. And what happens, because in a normal show about a kid disappearing, it's like they got kidnapped in a car and got taken to another city or something, and we got to figure that mystery out. In this planet does not exist on star charts.
And no one's allowed to leave.
No one is allowed to leave the planet. They accidentally leave. What do you do?
Yeah. And it's not even like we'll just follow them. They don't know where they went, and you didn't see them go. They took off in a random direction in space faster than the speed of light.
And every time
that's gone.
They ask an adult about their planet, the response is, your planet doesn't exist.
Yeah, why are you telling stories, kid? That's not a real place. That's a fairy tale.
Right. Everything about Skeleton Crew is, you made that Treasure Island comparison. That's such a perfect analogy for what Star Wars Skeleton Crew is. And it has that innocence in that, how do I put it? So in Star Wars A New Hope, one of the first things that we see in the movie is we go to a hive of scum and villainy where they play light jazz.
Oh yeah.
And you get to see people that are angry pirates doing angry pirate things, but you know that there's a space wizard here and this young boy. They're going to meet with Han Solo, who's like the most badass character in the history of Star Wars. Now, I don't know, man. Jude Law's up there now. I'm just going to say.
Yeah, he's a good pirate.
He's a really good pirate. You're like, oh man, I wouldn't want to go into that cantina. Somebody's going to get killed in that cantina. In episode like 2, you go to a pirate planet.
Yeah.
That they are told in advance, people just die here because they exist. It is somebody sees you with a shiny bracelet and says, I want that gunshot steel bracelet. And it's just like second nature. And you're like, but there are 4 children on this island.
Yeah. Literally, someone walks over and is like, there should not be children here. How did you get here? I need to get you home.
I am saying this as somebody who does not have children other than the 2 cats that I own. That
Oh God! And if they were there, we'd grab them immediately.
Right, I would be so panicked if my cats were on that planet. I can't imagine what this is like for a real adult with real children. Like, that sounds terrifying to me.
Yeah.
I have made pacts with all of my stepkids. Like, whatever happens, let me know. I will cross any legal whatever boundary to keep your mom happy.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
None of you are allowed to die before that woman.
There you go. See, we have the parental perspective. You do need to see it. I hate to say this, but we live in this time where Star Wars is somehow fucking controversial to people.
What isn't political? Of
Right,
course,
what
Star
isn't
Wars
political?
is, even when it's trying not to be.
Now, that being said, I am a person who says, like, all art is political.
No,
Star Wars
that-
is definitely political.
But has a view on politics versus being talked about by idiots who've never been near a woman.
Right.
Right?
Very different.
Right.
Very different politics being discussed here. And that's the problem, is that for so long we've been having to talk about Star Wars because so many people who have never even smelled a woman before have these very strong opinions about what space wizards do for some weird reason. And I let most of those arguments go because I realize people are weird about things that they love, and that's fine. Just don't bring it near me and my friends. But when it came to Skeleton Crew, like after we watched those first few episodes, and I do occasionally use this as my barometer for things. Look, man, like if you can't find fun in this, maybe your soul is dead. Like that's I've used kind of a similar analogy. I was talking about like Thor: Love and Thunder. I acknowledge that's not like a great movie, but it's fun, man.
It is fun.
Like if you can have fun with the movie about a beautiful blonde man going around the galaxy
with screaming goats.
With screaming goats. I don't know what to tell you. Like maybe you forgot how to have fun. But definitively, Skeleton Crew is one of those shows that I watched it and went, if you don't like this, maybe Star Wars isn't for you.
Yeah.
Maybe you have aged out of it, and that's okay. If you've aged out of Star Wars, by all means, go find something
If you want to get
else.
really edgy about some sci-fi, join the Dune community.
Yeah.
They have so much to tell you.
You know what? And I don't want to throw this onto our community. I say this like I'm a part of it, but go read and watch The Expanse.
Oh God, please.
The
Please do
Expanse
that.
is a beautiful piece of science fiction that is very much about modern politics. And all of the big thing about The Expanse is that all the space stuff is written it's researched.
Right. It's
like how
realistic.
people would be in space.
Like when they have to change direction, man,
yeah.
everybody's got to strap in
takes
for
like
days.
20 hours to change direction in space.
Yep, because you're going really fast and you
Yeah.
can't slow down all at once.
Flip and burn, baby.
Flip and burn.
But I watch Star Wars because it's about space pirates and space wizards.
Yeah, we didn't even fucking worry about gravity. Just let the Jedi stand outside the ship like it's a fucking bi-wing.
Right. Since the inception of Star Wars, people have talked about, and I've seen this online since I was a young boy, about the impracticality of a lightsaber and how it just wouldn't be able to contain its shape.
Whatever.
The only reason that and the argument from the Star Wars community is the reason it can maintain its shape is because you use the Force, ergo space wizard.
What if those fuckers don't know how not real space crystals work? And yeah, it arcs.
Wait,
Look,
so
y'all.
everybody who turns on a lightsaber has to use the Force to maintain its
Not,
shape?
not for a long time.
Not for a long time.
A long time ago, yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
But
Okay.
that's these things have been being changed. So recently
things have been.
We have been seeing Force whips.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I actually have written, but I've never played a Star Wars role playing character. Do not steal this character. If you do, cast me.
Well, we're publishing this episode
who-
soon, so it'll be on the record.
It is on the record
'Kay.
that I have written a character that I've never gotten to play in a Star Wars RPG that uses a Force scythe.
Cool.
So he's a
Oh.
straight up Sith Reaper.
I thought that was going in a totally different direction for a
No, I
minute.
keep my personal Star Wars fan fiction to myself and a handful of our audience that likes to read about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But like Star Wars ultimately is about space wizards and fun things, and yes, Lucas put the Trade Federation or the trade stuff in there and all this, and yes, it can get very political. But like I said, I keep coming back to this point, bro. If you can't find fun in Skeleton Crew, I don't know what to tell you. Like maybe it is time to move past Star Wars and say that it's okay to say that something is not for you. I was even willing to watch The Acolyte, and I hated people's, specifically incels' opinions about The Acolyte because it was all very gross discourse about the casting and who they were and their gender and races, which was very upsetting to me. By the way, how are you going to be racist in a fucking series that has Greedo aliens in it? I'm
Right.
just sorry. Like, oh, I'm mad that a black woman got cast in. I don't know, man. Like
Like the kid was an elephant.
Right.
The family were
right?
elephants.
And I cared so much about Elephant Kid.
Elephant
and
Kid is the best.
He is the best. And,
And-
if anything happened to him, I would have been very upset because I don't even know anything about his family other than I wish they had been my neighbors.
Yeah.
And you know what pisses
look
me
like
off
good neighbors.
about the angry fanboys the most is it takes away my anger because like I'm angry that the prequels are bad, but I'm angry as a filmmaker and I can't express that anger anymore because I get lumped in with all the incels. So I'm like, oh no, I guess they're okay. I guess it's a fine that France has a resurgence love of the prequels, and it's fine that people appreciate them as art. No, that's not okay, and I want to scream about it, but I can't.
No, you
because I'll get
can't.
lumped in with all the other guys.
Do you know how much good literary criticism there is to be had with things like Harry Potter and Twilight? You could write, and people have like volumes on like, well, maybe if you wanted to be a good writer, you could not make these mistakes, but you can't because there's so much else to talk about, and it just gets lost.
Yeah. So what we're really trying to say here is, if you haven't seen Skeleton Crew,
Watch Skeleton Crew.
fucking
Star Wars is a
7 episodes.
sandbox. There's good story, there's dark stories and light stories and good fun to be had, and it's not all grim dark, because well, what else is a sandbox? Fucking Warhammer's a sandbox, but it's all grim dark. There are very few happy stories in Warhammer. No one's having a fun childhood in Warhammer.
and I say
in Star Wars, we can have a fun childhood.
I say just for fun, be a pirate and find your own way to watch it.
Yar har
be a-
fiddly dee, my
Be a
friend.
pirate, sail the high seas of the internet and find your things. All right. Normally, this is where we would end the show. However, new format, new show, new icons, new us. So, if you want to listen to a little bit more of what's been going on, we've covered the news, we've covered our main topic, but we're going to be getting into what we've been up to in the epilogue.
Epilogue.
Welcome to the epilogue, everyone. It's time to dive into what we've been up to this week, what we've been playing, what we've been watching, what's been occupying our free time, and more importantly, what has been making us happy. New format, new year, new us. Normally you'd hear me go, hey, Hector, tell me what you've been up to. Hey, John, what have you been up to in this absence? What's been occupying your free time? What have you been having fun with, our producer?
Are you teeing me up for something?
You were teeing up. You were the first up on the list for the epilogue this week. What have you been playing? What have you been watching?
Oh,
Come on, man.
okay. It's an honest question.
It's
I
an
thought
honest question. I'm not teeing you up for anything. You're
okay.
a part of the conversation.
I thought you were angling
normally
me to
you're the-
talk about something specific. I'm like, oh
No,
God, what does he
you're
want?
usually the background actor and producer
Yes.
of the show. You are main stage now.
Well,
going into post episode 500.
I believe I am halfway through Borderlands 3.
Okay.
And if that is true, I'm a little pissed off that they have still not allowed me to start using my fourth there's a little square that is still blocked out that allows me to like adapt things, certain powers, whatever. I'm just saying, I've been playing this game for a long time, and not everything is
you still don't know
unlocked
all
for
of
my
it.
abilities. But it is going well. I am enjoying it. I do not think it is nearly as cringe as everybody thinks it is. And we talked about this before, how, it's like it was really funny for everybody in Borderlands 2. And they were like, oh, great, you like that? We'll do more of it. And then by Borderlands 3, everybody's like, oh, that's cringe humor. And so
I think you're separated from the peak.
Yeah.
From the peaks meeting. Rather,
Yeah.
You're on the like, oh yeah, that wasn't that bad.
Like
but
I'm
we
such
were all
a
up here.
I'm such a late adopter where I'm like, it's like 5% more dad humor than Borderlands 2, but it's fine. And I am enjoying the game feel, the quality of life improvements, like being able to lift yourself up onto a ledge that you could clearly just almost make it over.
So my question for you, as somebody who's going through the Borderlands saga for the first time, now that you're in Borderlands 3, you've been playing them back to back, which, good Lord, that's exhausting. A, are you going to play the Telltale games? And B, are you excited for Borderlands 4, having gone through all the games that you've been through at this point?
No and yes. I'm not going to play the Telltale. I actually have it, and I loaded it up one time and started to play it. And this was like 10 years ago, for the record. This was Xbox 360.
Oh, wow.
And because I didn't know what the hell Telltale games were. So I just thought, I got a free Borderlands from Xbox Gold or whatever. And I start playing it. I'm like, this is a choose your own adventure. Oh,
I will say
nah.
you're missing out. That's a fantastic
Very
game.
good.
I mean, maybe I should give it a try, but in the meantime, I am very excited for Borderlands 4. Although I haven't looked into anything. I don't know what's coming. My only hope.
We don't know anything other than the splash screen.
Yeah.
Right.
My only hope
They
is
gave
that
us the Elder Scrolls
they
6.
bring back a little low gravity. I love that about the prequels.
Agreed.
I will tell you, not Borderlands related, but I have had lunch in the Gearbox cafeteria. They have a very nice
Ooh.
setup there.
I would hope.
Yeah,
Good
I was up there for
Lord.
an esports event at one point, and they had us over, and yeah, very nice.
Nice.
Okay, can we talk about, just for a second before we move on, how the Gearbox and Borderlands have literally made the worst movie of the year?
I mean, we can. but,
And that's
Nobody
not,
else-
And that's not hyperbole. That's not me not liking the series or anything like that. I'm a big fan of the Borderlands games, and a lot of people who were involved in the creation of that movie. That is the worst movie of the year, and if you don't agree with me, it's because you haven't seen it.
No, and I got to say, though, I am very impressed by the industry. And when I say industry, I'm including like YouTube and bloggers and whatever. Like that, in my mind, is the quickest bad movie bomb. We're all going to hate on it fest.
yeah.
That is the quickest cycle I have ever seen in my entire
It's
life.
currently in talk for the
It-
number one of the Razzies this year.
Like it feels like that movie came out 5 years ago and people are, kind of finished with their hate. Like
It was
I have,
done 4 years ago.
yeah, like we
That
have
is actually
been
legitimately true. It was done 4 years ago.
fair, but like it just came out and we are done with the hate cycle like already.
Yeah.
Like that is efficiency, man.
I mean, we have no tolerance for bad things these days.
Yeah, no time.
All right, it's the epilogue. Hector, what you been up
Oh
to, man?
man, I got a couple of things, so I'm going to try not to go too long here at the end of the episode. But the absolute first thing I need to talk about is this year, just this last week, I wrapped up the series finale of Superman and Lois. I won't be spoiling any of it here, but I will tell you
I hope not.
that
I need to watch most of it.
that is the best that Superman has ever been on screen for me personally. I am a large defender of Zack Snyder. and his take on the Man of Steel. I really enjoyed Henry Cavill in that role. Superman is always such a give and take for me, and I don't mind the going back and forth between Boy Scout and literally evil
god.
sun god,
Mhm.
and everything else. But this fucking show has done more than anything else I've ever seen to humanize Superman, humanize him in a way, just not just giving him children and a family and some very, very clear things to protect, but also complicating his life in ways that normal human families are often complicated. His children are going through things. Some of them include discovering that they have powers. His wife is going through things. She, at some point in the show, is diagnosed with breast cancer, and they have to deal with that. Superman can't do shit about that. There's so much in this show that is just good family drama, and at the same time, it does the big spectacle Superman stuff. It does it without ever winking at the camera about, oh my God, that's an alien, or like, I can't believe I just punched a rock person. We don't laugh about it. We're just doing it because these are these people's lives. There's no snide remarks. It's just good writing, good characters, and they do their absolute best to get rid of almost all of the CW jank where they'll have like bad CG or like a little overly ambitious in some of their effects or something like that. You know what I mean? They do such a good job of just making it a grounded, good show about Superman and Lois and his family and the small town of Smallville. I I can't recommend it enough. It's the first show of the year that I watched and finished, and it's all streaming on HBO Max. But if you want to yahar your way into grabbing it, you should definitely watch it either way. It's a good show. There are 4 seasons of it, and then it's done. So good.
Yeah.
Better than Smallville?
I was never a fan of Smallville.
How dare you?
I was never a fan of that era of television. I completely missed it. I was way too into movies and video games at the time. I watched very little TV around the time Smallville was airing because it was all very formulaic to me. Everything was Buffy, and I watched Buffy.
Right.
So I was just kind of done. The other thing that I did, and I've done a bunch of other stuff, but this is what I want to spend my time on, is I've been playing a game called Eternal Strands. Earlier, James, you talked about game creators who had put their own money into their projects and who'd started their own studios and were really bringing up stuff, and that you got really talented people who are doing this sort of thing. I believe the studio is Yellow Brick Games, and they are made up of some OG people from OG Dragon Age. And I talked earlier about Dragon Age Origins, not Dragon Age Vileguard, the new one, selling under expectations and performing under expectations because people didn't really like it. For a lot of reasons, it just didn't feel like Dragon Age to people. This, to me, while it doesn't feel like Dragon Age at all, that's not what we're looking at. It feels like that kind of RPG. It feels like a big world with tons of mysteries to unlock and cool stuff to discover. They put so much effort into making the game fun. There is a Shadow of the Colossus component where you're climbing up these ancient, beings, trying to harvest stuff out of them to make cooler weapons. And if Monster Hunter's coming out, so I'm all about that right now. But there's also this like mystery that your team is uncovering, and they're always watching you and helping you out on your adventures, supporting you as you go out to, uncover the mysteries of this new world. It's the type of game. I was talking to James about this earlier. As I get older, it's harder and harder to sit for hours at a time and just play video games. Something will always enter my mind, and an hour or two will go by, and I could be playing God of War Ragnarok, but my brain will go, is there anything else I should be doing? Do I have any chores? Do I have any stuff for work? Do I need to be productive right now? It's hard to turn my brain off, and I have to remind myself, no, I set this time aside to play my games. Just play your game, dude. this game has the sauce because I could sit there for 5 hours and just not worry about anything but what I'm accomplishing in this game. There's a ton going on. There's always minute decisions to make, and they're not big things about like whether or not my companion likes me or what the ending is going to be. It's not big on that type of stuff. It's literally decisions on how I'm going to maximize my time. Am I going to try and farm a bunch of materials for better gear, or am I going to try and progress the story? Am I going to kill this giant colossus monster for better magic powers, or am I going to kill it in such a way where I can harvest its awesome loot for better gear? There's always little decisions to make that affect where you go and how you play, and you're always kind of planning your next move while executing your current one. It's just very, very well designed by some people who clearly know what they're doing. And I love this game so much, and I can't wait to see what Yellow Brick does next. A first contender for Game of the Year.
Wow, out the gate. Wow, very impressive. Okay, my side of the world. Not as exciting, to be perfectly honest. At the beginning of the year, while we were on break, I got pneumonia, and I was very much bedridden for a couple of weeks and wasn't able to do very much. At the end of last year, I got to the final boss at Metaphor Refantagio. I'm still there, not because I haven't beaten him or I can't beat him, because I have not picked the game back up. There's been a lot that's been going on behind the scenes. Obviously, we've been working on a lot for the show. I still love Metaphor. I know that immediately after I get done beating the final boss, I'm going to go right into New Game Plus and get my platinum like I do with every Persona game that's out there. Metaphor Refantagio, there's a reason it won all the awards that it did. It's fantastic. And it takes a lot to sell me on like a medieval style RPG because I just played so many in my life. Metaphor is just, it's a work of art. And if you're ever looking to get into an Atlas game, but Persona games are maybe a little bit too intimidating for you, Metaphor is probably the one for you. So I do highly recommend that. And I will be finishing it up over the next couple of weeks when I get there. The big one video game wise for me, last year my big thing was I was playing FromSoft's back catalog and catching up on all the games that I missed or never got around to finishing. This go around on this year, I'm going to be really heavily diving into a lot of indie titles, but I haven't started my list yet. The reason for that is, aside from we are playing a little game called Marvel Rivals.
We are playing Marvel Rivals. Speaking of a live service game, I don't have time for a second one.
Yep.
Just so everyone understands, I got the one.
We are playing Marvel Rivals. In our friends group, we have kind of after work games, usually between the hours of 5 and 7. We get together after work, we decompress from the day, we grab a drink, we all hop online. Upcoming will be Monster Hunter or the new Monster Hunter game.
Oh,
we'll
yeah,
be
Monster
playing
Hunter
that.
Wilds, end of February.
But we've been playing Marvel Rivals. That's
Yeah,
been
we have.
And I love hero shooters. I'm obviously sitting in an Overwatch chair. I play lots of hero-based shooters. It's been a while since a hero shooter has grabbed me the way that Overwatch did. I was a Marvel kid growing up. Marvel Rivals has stolen my heart. I'm probably on it more than I care to admit. I want to say that my main character, Penny Parker, I put at least 30 hours into. And
Yeah, sounds about right.
we only started like 3 weeks ago on this. So I have been playing a lot of Marvel Rivals.
A lot of Penny Parker.
A lot of Penny Parker. I'm really good with her. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. As somebody who grew up reading Marvel and loving Marvel, and especially because, I know I've talked about this a couple of times, a lot of my favorite Marvel characters growing up were always D-list characters like Moon Knight. I was so happy that he got his own show. I love that he's treated very respectfully in Marvel Rivals. Like
Yeah,
he's actually
a good-ass character.
very good character. So it's cool to be able to play as one of the characters that I loved so much growing up. I was a big Hawkeye fan growing up. Loved that he got his own show. Loved playing him in Marvel Rivals. But the big thing that I want to talk about for what I have been up to over the last couple of weeks doesn't deal with Marvel Rivals or anything video game related. I want to talk a little bit about the passing of David Lynch. I'm not one that tends to find that celebrity deaths hit me. We are all humans. We all go through the cycle. Life and death is what it is. And even before his death, I don't know if you were to ask me on the street, are you a David Lynch fan? I'd be like, I am, but like you can only quantify that so much because I've seen Twin Peaks and only the first 2 seasons and a little bit of the third season, and a couple of his films like Lost Highway I grew up with. So I was always aware of David Lynch, but I was more aware of David Lynch via his online presence. Now, a lot of times when we talk about celebrities' online presence, it's very gross, and you
Yeah.
don't want to talk about it. Um, David Lynch had a very unique relationship with technology. He was one of the first content creators slash directors to fully invest in digital formats. He had a website where he kept regular just blogs before video blogs were really even a thing, where he would just talk to the audience. And it wasn't about things like filmmaking often. It's usually like what he's been reading or like what he's been eating and things of that nature. Um, it's a pretty well known fact that David Lynch, bit of a horn dog, loved sexy women, loved to film sexy women. But in a time in Hollywood in which so many people are being brought out and shown for how gross they are, that is not what people say about David Lynch. People are like, yeah, David Lynch did love women. He did love like filming sexy women. He loved the femme fatale as a very rock solid archetype in every single one of his pieces of work. But none of those actresses ever had a gross thing to say about him.
Nope, not a creep.
He is a professional. He is a person who takes care of his people. And so over the last few weeks, I've been regularly watching David Lynch's filmography. I watched Mulholland Drive. I watched Blue Velvet. I rewatched the first 2 seasons of Twin Peaks. I did back in the day watch the first half of the final season of Twin Peaks. I'm actually saving that as my goodbye, because I've heard nothing but amazing things about the final season of Twin Peaks, and I know I'm probably going to cry. And like I said at the beginning of this, I'm not a person who often gets very teary-eyed when a celebrity has passed, but David Lynch's presence online, I remember in the middle of the midst of the pandemic when we were all going through things, Lynch would just post little video blogs during the pandemic of just like, it's another sunny day out in LA. This is what the weather's like. I'm just trying to get through it. And he's a weird dude, man. Like, he was super into transcendental meditation and like really did believe that we all like spiritually are connected to one another via the galaxy. Like, the
Right.
dude had abstract concepts. But he never was gross about it. He never threw his views of the universe on other people. All he wanted to do was make art. I've been watching not only his filmography, but I've been watching a lot of YouTubers who have been talking about David Lynch. And something that I cannot remember which YouTuber said it that I watched recently said, to understand the way that Lynch views cinema, you need to understand that David Lynch is a painter first and a director second. So the way that he views cinema is through the lens of somebody who spends his free time painting, not directing film. There's a really great quote from one of the movies that he was in recently where he says, if the horizon is at the top of the screen, it's beautiful. And I'm paraphrasing here. If the horizon is at the bottom of the screen, it's beautiful or it's art. If the horizon is in the middle of the screen, it's boring. And that statement tells you so much about the way that Lynch saw the world. He always looked for beauty in everything, and he could not tolerate the mundane, which is so funny when you think about something like Twin Peaks, one of the things that I'm obsessed with, because so much of Twin Peaks is rooted in the mundane, but it's about finding the magic in the mundane without using literal magic.
Yeah.
And everything that Lynch does is that same thing. And the reason I think about it is because not only, to go to the beginning of this conversation as I begin to wrap up, if you said, James, are you a fan of David Lynch? I would have said, well, yeah, I am, but I've only seen a handful of his works. But watching these movies and being introduced to some of them, I was also thinking of all the things that I have played, all the things that I have watched, all the things that I have consumed in the world of pop culture that were influenced by David Lynch. Somebody on Blue Sky said David Lynch was one of the only people that in his lifetime created a genre, and he didn't create the word, others created the word Lynchian that defines a very specific type of filmmaking. And he got to live in a time where his name was made into a verb to describe a certain type of media.
He got to have such a unique perspective that when anything else even remotely reminded people of what he made, they named it after him.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. Not everybody gets that. Most people don't.
And as much as I may not be a David Lynch fan, I'm a classic David Lynch hater. I do love his perspective, his actual literal opinions. In fact, I just shared with you guys one of my favorite documentaries of all time called Side by Side, where he gives a lot of interviews about film versus digital and what it means to filmmakers and, like basically the democratization of film. And he has some of the best lines in the whole movie, and he's just the greatest curmudgeon who's just make what you want to make the way you want to make it, and so I love listening to him talk anytime I can.
Yeah. And that's what I've been going through. I've been watching his interviews, and I was a poser in the Lynch industry. I loved Twin Peaks, and I loved a couple of his movies like Lost Highway growing up, but I never dived into all of it. And something that this has really taught me is that if you're a fan of something, you are just a fan of something. It doesn't matter how much works of the thing. So to give a extreme example here, if you've only ever listened to one Chappell Roan song, but you really like it, you're a fan of her work. That's what David Lynch was, and I didn't realize that, because the way that David Lynch talks about media is that the most important thing is having a love and appreciation for the media that you're consuming. And man, whether I know it or not, Lynch's work defines so much of who I am as a person. And it's so interesting to go and watch all of these films that he's directed, the ones that I missed out on. And I'm just sitting there going yeah, man, I guess I always was a Lynch fan. This weird ass shit is my weird ass shit. This is the kind of stuff I like. I wouldn't have read House of Leaves if it wasn't for the fact that I loved Twin Peaks. I wouldn't love Control, the game that Remedy.
No.
We want to talk about a game studio I love that Hector introduced me to? Yeah. Remedy. Remedy is all because of David Lynch.
Just sits right there on top of his shoulders, making greatness the whole time.
All of Alan Wake is just Twin Peaks, bro. So that's what I've been doing over the last couple of weeks, and I'm far from done. And I'm surprised that it hit me the way that it did. But, man, right now, not to get too political about this, we are staring down the barrel of a very difficult 4 years in the United States. And I remember this joke that we've seen online for years, which is we were all doing really good until David Bowie died.
Yeah.
Right, or somebody shot the monkey. Right, those are the two.
Oh, Harambe.
Yeah, points in time.
I hate to put those two events together, but yeah, that's
when the timeline got weird, right? And there was something that was almost poetic, where I was laid up on my couch with pneumonia, and the presidential inauguration's happening, and then David Lynch dies. And there was a part of my brain that just kind of short-circuited, because it was he got out. He got out before it's about to go where it's going. And I try not to be that person. I try to be a positive person. And in the midst of all the bad stuff that's going on, I do believe that we, will persevere and that the world can be a better place. But damn, if David Lynch dying around the time of the presidential inauguration didn't just set my brain into a spot that I was I don't know if I'm okay. So I'm going to watch all of David Lynch's movies. That's what I'm going to do. And I know that's a sad thing to end the show on, but you know what? If you learned nothing from what I've just said, maybe pick up a David Lynch movie, watch Twin Peaks. The man was brilliant.
Yeah. He found a way to find joy in everything.
There's something that is said in Twin Peaks I've honestly held very close to my heart, very beginning of it, which is Agent Dale Cooper is talking to either the sheriff or the sheriff's deputy, and he says, every day, do something nice for yourself. It can be a piece of pie, it can be a present, but every day do something for yourself. And I have always held that in my heart, whether that's carving out an hour of game time, messaging one of my friends, doing a podcast with the people that I care about. Those are the things in my life that I hold. That's the Lynch will always be in my heart because every day I do one thing at least for myself, and I will always remember him because of that. All right, that's everything that we have for the show this week. Don't forget that you can head over to goodnight.gg to become a patron of our show. You can head over to facebook.com/GNGGcast where you can chat with us, see the shows live streamed there, as well as at GNGGcast on Twitter, goodnight.gg on Blue Sky. We are in all the places.
Subscribe on YouTube now.
Yeah, we are on YouTube. Please
We're
subscribe on
streaming live.
YouTube. Yeah. All right. What a heavy episode, but we are back, baby.
They're not going to get lighter.
Not going to get lighter from here, but we're going to have fun trying. Until next time, for Hector, this is James.
And for James, this is Hector.
And for you, this is me.
Everyone, good night.
And in the words of David Lynch, fix your broken heart or die.
Perfect.
Bam, bam, bam. Well, thank you, people in the live stream chat.
Thank
things.
you, Internet. Y'all were wonderful.
Y'all are awesome.
We
Thank
appreciate
you.
your participation. So,
Yeah, so many comments, like
Yeah.
so many people.
the visitant.
Yeah,
Oracle.
that's me.
Oracle Psych.
Yeah, we have That's Ice.
That's
We've got
it.
a little library. All you guys coming in, like
Thank y'all
hanging
so
out.
much for
We got at
hanging
least
out.
like one subscription on Twitter or Twitch while we did this.
Cool.
Thank y'all so much. We are back. It's gonna get better. There's only so much time. Also, trailers though. Really,
Yeah. I don't even watch trailers. I try not to.
that is very true. But yeah, we're gonna head out.
Yeah,
Y'all have a
thank you,
wonderful
guys.
time. Thank you so much.
Good night, Internet.
Talk to you soon.